We are live. We're going
Awesome.
live everywhere.
We're on the air.
Again, it does look like we're going live. Okay, nagadzabaitek. Basta gaigi Instagram. Hungen, we're going live on Instagram.
Malika.
Hungen, gaigi Facebook lokwe. Hungen, we're on Facebook too. And one more thing, I will check. Are we on YouTube? Hungen, Enigi, we are on YouTube as well. All
Wow.
right, Biba. Okay.
Biba, as technical advisor, how?
Well, Han Solo Malolo,
Hi, Dave.
as my pari Ken says, but Mango Futsu. All
Hi,
right, here.
easy
All
Ken.
right, let me get this started now. Half a day, todos samzu gwana hudzung estigi on the web on episode Fanatsu. Guawi host Midzu Talo, si Michael Luhan Bavakwa. But I don't know if you've noticed, but it is election season. Guini, Islas Marianas, Guini Gidza Guahan, it is election season. Have you decided who you're voting for yet? You know, Fanachu is a podcast that talks about Chamorro issues, Chamorro history, Chamorro language. And when it's election year, sometimes we host voices of grassroots candidates as well, especially new candidates, new people to the conversation who have important things to say. Because everyone always says, oh, you know, we should stop voting in the same people, but then people vote in the same people and all of that stuff. But well, nihita fan ekungok. Now let's listen to who is out there. Let's listen to what some people from our community have to say. And I think that the candidate that I have here with me today, si Kallen Perez, is somebody where if you're looking for somebody who represents a new voice, Kallen Perez is a perfect candidate. Somebody who's going to talk about some of the issues in a way that might make you a little uncomfortable, really gets at the heart of the matter. So many issues that we struggle with. And I say this as somebody who is critical of how people say, oh, you know, we got to get tough on crime. We got to get tough on this. We need to throw money at this and that. But that doesn't get to the structure, the heart of some of the things that we face. I mean, I don't care how many billboards you put up attacking issues. I don't care how many billboards, it's not really going to help the people in the community. And so, what we really need are people in the community who are on the ground, who are talking about things like sustainability, food security, how to help those who are struggling with some of the really basic issues in the community. And I can tell you, it's not those who make millions of dollars a year or who serve in political office for decades and somehow say, I'm the real voice of the people. And so that's why I am so glad to have here
Aw.
on Funatsu today si Kallen Perez. Si Zeus Masi Parifenatopmo, Kallen, it is great to have you
Ah,
on Fanatsu. You're
Wakumas. Thank you. What an introduction.
oh Hungan. I think it's I'm I'm bringing, you know, I introduced you in that way because sustainability is such a big buzzword for so many
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
But when we look at what candidates are really offering, what are they really offering? They're going to give you a reusable bag with their logo on it.
Some
And
merch,
that,
right?
yeah, but they're not doing what you're doing, for example, in which they're actually working on programs, they're actually helping people, and they're actually talking about like food security, food insecurity. And so that's why I'm really glad that somebody like you has shown up from the grassroots, from the community, who is willing to serve, willing to put yourself out there. And so before we get started, Cosino and introduce in Maisahao, you know, just go ahead and however you want to
Sure.
do it, introduce yourself for people
Okay.
who may not know you.
Thank you. Si Diyos maasi para todo ano. Well, my name is Kallen Perez. I am a lifelong resident of Sinahanya. I come from the Liberatu clan on the Sablan and Guerrero side of my paternal grandmother, and I'm on the Saru Perez family from my paternal grandfather. My dad is Dr. Chris Perez, former regent. He was administrator for the hospital. He was a small business owner from kind of the second generation of the first Chamorro doctors on Guam. And my mom is Dr. Deborah Erickson. She hails from Southern California. She and my dad met at medical school and then moved to Guam in 1984, worked at public health, and then started their clinic, which was the first locally owned, doctor-owned clinic on Guam. It was family medical clinic first, then the doctor's clinic later. And I have grown up on Guam my whole life. I went to University of Guam. I have an English degree from there. But at the time when I graduated, Chamorro Studies was being offered as a minor. So I have a minor in Chamorro Studies, and my classmates include like Defunto si Jeremy Cepeda, Maestra Guisi Fauna Sands, Giza Finadzakan, Jesse Chargilov, member of Independent Guåhan. So that was where my understanding of what it means to be Chamorro and a young person in the modern Chamorro world really began. And then after that, I started advocacy work in the community. In 2016, we started reading the 20,000 page draft EIS for Camp Palaz, and especially the firing range that was going to be built at Liheslaturan. I joined a direct action group at that time, I Liheslaturan, which is now I Guåhan. We did a lot of legislative advocacy. I wrote a poem about Ratidian that was published in Storyboard. My teacher, Dr. James Perez Viernes, is the one who took me to Ratidian for my first time, and that was a profound experience that changed my life. And that was, I was a senior in college at the time in 2015. Both of my parents have passed away from cancer. My dad was actually a longtime advocate with the Pacific Association of Radiation Survivors, and they have taken their fight all the way to the U.S. Senate. The president of PARS is actually the treasurer of my campaign, Uncle Robert Celestial, so I'm going to give him a big shout out here. And then after my parents died, I experienced a difficult time with substance use disorder. And so I was in this really dark place for about a year, and then I went to treatment, and then I worked at Guam Behavioral for several years as a recovery coach. And after I got clean, continued with a lot of advocacy work that I've done. And I now work at Guåhan Sustainable Culture, so that's where I'm at now, physically and figuratively here. And learning about our food pathways and just the ways we've been cut off from this indigenous knowledge that previously was a really robust part of our lives as Chamorro people. It's been really eye-opening being here, and I'm so inspired by the work that's being done by the different programs here. And after over the last several months, there's been so many issues that I've seen just directly affecting us as Chamorro people, but also as a community that, lives and wants to thrive here. And I found myself repeatedly at the legislature providing public testimony for different things. And I think it was maybe like the fifth or sixth time in the course of 6 months, I was looking around at my friends and I said, are we going to keep coming down here and like begging these guys for, what feels like, scraps of like human decency, basic human rights, like just to even recognize the struggle. And that moment for me, I really felt like it's funny because during our testimony on the, you sit at the table and they call you a panel, and several of my legislative heroes were encouraging all of us on that panel, like, we need more people like you up here. Can you please consider running for senator? And it was something that was always maybe in the back of my mind, considering it to be like a future moment for me, But I just was looking around and I thought, man, why not us? Why not now, right? Zangen tihita pues hadzi. So I said, okay, I think I think this is something I could do, and I'm fortunate to be in a um, employment situation where I don't have to like quit my job to run, and I had the support of the executive directors at my work and my family and my friends and our community. And so I said, I'm going to give it a shot. And yeah, I take the framework that I've learned over the past, over a decade of experience and just the different ways that we've seen tomorrow issues come to the surface and community issues come to the surface, issues of sustainability, but also, I mean, economy, education, healthcare. Like my parents cared for patients, for 3 decades, and seeing the ways all of these things are connected through policy has been really inspiring to me. We can't make a change if the priorities of our legislative body remain the same. So I'm really inspired by Senator Terlahi, Senator Perez, Senator Barnett, and Senator Tydegui actually has taken a great stand in the last couple of legislatures to be unified on this issue. And it's frustrating that they don't have as much robust support from other senators, right? So wanting to be able to support them, and then also recognizing that if our leaders are not experiencing the same things we're experiencing, are not, parents with children in the public school system, if they're not, feeling the struggle of like what it's like to have to choose between gassing the car or filling up the fridge, like these are the issues that really I know we're all feeling. And so it's important that people who look like us represent us. So my
Yeah.
campaign is about putting people first. And I think if you are familiar with my advocacy or with my experience, you could see that. But I really want to make sure that when it comes to policy, we are putting people first in what we're voting for and putting forth. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for letting me have a very long-winded
No, Ulito,
introduction.
no, no, whoever this, no, si Zeus Masi. And I think I appreciate everything that you shared. And Zahonay na Besangani Lokoy, I want to let you know that, when I was a student at UOG, your dad, Sito Tomo, he was a doctor there that I saw a few times.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, when I was a little kid,
I remember his bow tie.
yeah, he was the student center doctor. So when I was a little kid, sometimes he would pick me up and okay, we're going to UOG. I was so excited because I would always get to pick like whatever snack I wanted, and yeah, he was so involved in the community, and that's one thing that he really instilled in me and my mom really instilled in me, right, is that if we are members of a community, it is our duty to take care of each other. And that is something I live by to this day in my personal life. I live by in my professional life. And this is an Indigenous value, right? That if we have, we give. And I think one of the things that I've noticed in the 38th legislature is that there's been a lot of focus on special interest, and a lot of their priorities seems to be on benefiting large corporations, right? And politically, for me, that's frustrating because it's been proven, and even like the Chamber of Commerce, for example, have admitted to this, that it doesn't result in higher wages for employees. It doesn't result in lower costs for consumers. And so if we are benefiting, a lot of times they're like foreign businesses too that are just profiting off of it was an 80 million business privilege tax reduction, right? And that's frustrating because for me, I want to see like how are we supporting our small businesses? How are we supporting our farmers? Like how are we making sure that there are robust programs for people to be able to afford housing, right? And to be able to do these like transformational changes, you need transformational investment into these issues. And so by removing that revenue from the government as an option, I mean, that to me was like, that was one of the biggest things that like, when I watch the legislative live stream, sometimes I get rowdy. I'm like, what? When I see the votes and, yeah, so that's what I mean when I say putting people first. I know it kind of it's short, it's hard to explain in just those three words, but um yeah, it was really instilled to me by my parents and I saw it in their work, every
Mm.
single day.
No, Sidus Masen. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's important because I we have it's common for political leaders, to be called to serve, but why are they serving? Who are they serving? And so I find especially now that we have generations of activists,
Mm,
generations where people have received a calling, stories from their parents, their grandparents, whether it's because our land was taken, this is a struggle that we haven't inherited, or this is what we do. We take care of people. So you should take care of people. And this is important because when we look today and you see kind of political leaders and they're very generic, it's like they're AI generated. It's
I
like, mga zo, who really wants that nowadays?
oh my
I
goodness.
think I think people don't necessarily want that nowadays.
Mm,
And so, especially with all of the stuff that's out there, you're craving somebody who's a little bit more real, craving somebody who offers a little bit more than that. And so that's why I think sharing your story about that your parents instilling that in you about taking care and then, connecting it to your experience. And that's sort of what I'd want to get to now because we have some questions and para Hamzo ni Umeega, if you have questions, put your questions in. If you have comments, we've already
yes.
got some messages of support that have come in for Kallen.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
so, but if you
Caesar
have any
Small.
questions about what she stands for or what she would do, put favor. We're on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. But
Amazing.
and so one of the big questions that's come in though is, of course, about food security and food insecurity.
Mm.
And so the question is, can you tell us concretely, what can the legislature do though to make sure that we increase our food security? What can you offer in terms of ideas to really help make sure that the empty shelves of the pandemic, but also make sure that our farmers get support? And so this person really wants to know, do you have any ideas on how we can really make sure this happens?
Caesar Masi for the question. I really like to focus on tangible solutions. Of course, I am a big idea person also, but I don't think it's useful to talk about big ideas without understanding the small steps it takes us to get there, right? So, one thing that I learned when I started working at GSC is that pre-World War II, Guam exported millions of pounds of copra, millions of pounds of taro. And so this idea, this modern idea that we cannot sustain ourselves it's very new, right? It's only within the last 80 years that this introduced manufactured dependence on imports has become normalized. So I think that's really a useful place to start. And there were photographs about this at the Zengantihita Pues Hadzi exhibit that I loved seeing a ganya filled with um, like copra spots where they were prepping it and, recognizing that just 2 generations ago, our families sustained themselves with all the food that they could grow at their family ranch. or, throughout the community really helps me to conceptualize that, okay, this is something doable. It's not out of our reach. Even if, for example, my kids don't recognize a life like that, it's not impossible, right? So I think that's the first place to start is like conceptually, this is absolutely something we can do. The next step, how do we do that? I do have, a lot of lofty ideas about how to sustain and implement more local growing and like even exporting. I spoke at the Guam Women's Chamber about a commercial kitchen idea. This, I think, would be really transformational. A publicly funded commercial kitchen that is accessible for all bona fide farmers on Guam. And that gives them the option to do things like we see it already, successful examples of this, like in Mungie Pops, right? Mungie Pops, they have calamansi flavored Mungie Pops. That calamansi comes from right here at GSC. There's soursop, right? These are ways that you take a fresh product and then you transform it into something that can either be shelf stable through freezing or shelf stable through drying. And then the possibility of it becoming like an export or available at all the stores, it just like unlocks this new opportunity for farmers because if you look at the data, and one of my co-executive directors, Michelle Crisostomo, presented data on this at the CIS conference this year. Selling produce alone is not necessarily a profit generator for farmers, right? Because produce has such a short shelf life. Like, yes, it's better when it's fresh, and we want to encourage buying produce from Guam, but it doesn't last long. And so your window of opportunity for making revenue is short, right? And then also your ability to like get it out there to all the different, like distribution is difficult for farmers, right? We've seen that. So having the opportunity, Michelle's research shows that the difference between selling basil by itself as a fresh product and then transforming it into pesto and then selling that is like 3 to 4 times increase in revenue. That's what her research showed at CIS. Yeah. So that's just one example, one product, basil to pesto, right? But if we're talking like taro to sweet potato flour, we're talking calamansi to mungie pops, right? All of these different opportunities for farmers to be able to take, I have so much cucumber, right? We're going to make salsa, right? Like these opportunities for farmers to have it become something that now can exist on a shelf, can be sent on a plane, can be marketed at the airport, can be, like all of these opportunities allows them to now have it become something that is economically viable for them. So that's number two. Number three, I talked about this at the Sip and Decide event forum that was a couple weeks ago. We talked about food systems. I think we need to incentivize our stores to prioritize local produce. So if you have, let's say, Happy Mart, for example, and they are buying local cucumbers, they could either get like a tax incentive for like focusing on local cucumbers, or we could do a tax disincentive if they're importing outside cucumbers when local cucumbers are available, right? So this now gives business owners like tangible reason to invest in our local farmers, right? And I use Happy Mart as an example because they're really good about supporting local. I always go there for local produce, right? And so making sure that the strategy is not just available to them, but encouraged by our government. And that there's so many things that the legislature can do to encourage this. We can give like tax breaks to like uh, bona fide farmers. I mean, you could lower their like their what is this called? Business license. You could waive, stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
But I think the most important thing is getting a lot of people who care about this issue into the legislature. And that's what's frustrating with the current 38th legislature that is a Republican majority. And of course, I don't include Senator Titagui in that because she, has very measured voting record. But Yeah, it really has felt like they have prioritized business over, our everyday people. And looking at that just over the last 2 years has been really frustrating because that has been when I've done all my work that I'm currently doing with the program I work under GSC is called Sagandaneku, Place to Grow. And we recognize that some of the big barriers for farmers include access to land. It includes fencing because of our feral pig population. So this is a multi-year grant that we have secured to be able to use a portion of our 50-acre food forest here at GSC. We're doing 5 acres to start and then bringing in a cohort of farmers who don't have access to land, who maybe don't have the resources to fence their property. And we are going to give them a fenced area where they can grow their own. Our focus is root crops because traditionally pre-war, like I said, that was one of Guam's largest exports. So yeah, we're doing taro, yam, sweet potato, but yeah, so seeing that and seeing how interested our farmers are in this opportunity, like this is what I've dreamed of. Right now, I'm growing taro in a container, like a Home Depot container. Because if you put it in the ground, it just invites all the pigs. So yeah, I think recognizing the barriers, addressing them directly through legislation, and then also being willing to find creative solutions to this issue, right? Because otherwise, of course, if it's cheaper to buy a stateside cucumber and sell it, and then it's more cumbersome to go and find the local farmer who has all the cucumber. Like um, we have to make it incentivized for these businesses and tell them like, hey, if you focus on local, we're going to make it better for you. And
Mm.
that's a great place to start.
Sidus Masi. What I love about this is compared to, when we often talk to or hear from politicians and there's a lot of talk about, oh, we could do this. But if you really hear them, if you really think about what they're saying, it's clear that they haven't really thought about how to get there. They're just kind of saying, we could throw money at it, or we could just make stuff better, or we could just make it bigger, or we could just, and they're just kind of saying, we're going to put people in prison longer, or we're just going to make stuff shinier, but they're not thinking, how would we actually implement it? And that's why I wish that people would think more about who would they want to have in office? Who would they want to have leading them? People who have been on the ground working in nonprofits, working with the community, they're the ones who think about like, well, what can we actually do? And I loved when you brought up Michelle thinking about, well, that was such a strong point that I think a lot of politicians and a lot of people miss is that if the focus is often, well, let's just get people making, farming and then they can sell stuff. But that's part of it. But then you can only make so much. Create more avenues through which then whatever they make can be purchased or be made into something else. And then there's more of a market, there's more commerce for it, there's more money. And if it's all happening locally, then there's more chances for people to come in, invest, work on it, more for people to buy, more chances. And eventually, like what you were thinking, there's possibility for us to export it too, if you can build it up enough. And so it's such a simple, but it's a powerful point that people miss. It's like they're just busy thinking, well, yeah, if everyone just farms again. But it's like, okay, yeah, that would be great. But let's also think if we can also take what they farm and convert it in a way so that there's more possibilities for it. And that's the type of grounded thinking that gets us beyond just the pandering promises and into like how do we get somewhere in terms of sustainability and food security and real circular economy and those types of buzzwords. And so I really appreciate you sharing all of that. And we had a whole bunch of comments. People were getting very excited by that. And I want Mangi Pops right now. I definitely esteni na malagod zuno ano isinangan mo. And
It's right there at Foodies.
yeah, somebody in Saipan was like, "Oh my goodness, bring this to Saipan," because in the CNMI, there's, I think, pound for pound, there's still in Luta, you have people farming more, and they also need these types of ideas too, in which you're assisting farmers, people who are comfortable working off the land, but creating those avenues of possibility for economic development for them, rather than just kind of the political promises, and the photo ops, the usual sorts of stuff.
The
And so,
resolution signing.
mhm. And so now there's one, we have so many questions. Let me pick one though. And
Okay.
so, because I found this one comes from Instagram. There's somebody who has a whole bunch of comments, and a lot of them though are connected to this idea. And I think it's resonating with a lot of what you're saying though. Because the inefresi is something that we say in schools, it's something that, even people in the legislature recite. It's something that generations today we take to heart. What is your thinking on the idea of making our laws, making the way our
Mm.
government functions, then making the way that we plan
Mm.
align with the inefresi? Because this is something that I think,
Yeah.
we children are prepared. This is one of the reasons why I think younger people are more environmentally conscious, more
Mm.
interested in protection and promotion of culture, because you recite the Inifresi, you're ready for it. And so I think this person is asking, like, what are you thinking of? What are your thoughts as somebody who may go into the Guam legislature about aligning what the government does and the laws that we have so that it matches with what the Inifresi calls for?
Yeah. Caesar's Mossy for that. I didn't learn the interfresi until I was at UOG, and I remember the first time I heard it, and it really just oh my gosh, it changed my whole perspective for how I view our island, right? And I think it's important to also recognize that the force of Western capitalism that we have inherited as a territory of the US is a force that is intrinsically exploitative, right? So it's helpful for me to recognize that a lot of what we see in government, in business, and in like just US politics is taken from this harmful lens of a system that is designed to harm. And if we recognize that as Indigenous people, as Chamorro people, we do not have that heritage. It is not in our nature to exploit resources for profit. Then that kind of releases us from this harmful system that just exploits, and uses to the point where there's nothing left. Chamorros are the original regenerative farmers. They're the original, uh, you know, sustainable, before it was a buzzword, that's how they lived. And so recognizing that it's our duty to protect these resources because the outside looking in, the foreign businesses that come here to have a place on American soil, to have, tax breaks and, good income, they will not protect it. It's on us, right? So I think when it comes to policy, recognizing that whatever policy is put before us, let's say a solar farm, that might look good on paper, right? We're going to regenerate energy using solar power. But if we're destroying forests or putting this on Chamorro Land Trust land, then you have to balance, right? Like where is my value system here? Is it just to be able to say, oh, I did this because it's, less stress on the power grid? Or are we saying, hey, hang on, Chamorro Land Trust is so sacred, it's so important that it's prioritized for our people. I'm not going to sacrifice it for a solar farm. Let's put these solar panels on, these 10 government buildings instead. Right. So looking for these ways that are like I said, tangible solutions to problems that do not exploit our natural resources just because someone can prove that it will turn a profit or that it will benefit, so and so XYZ line on the budget. I think making sure that our leaders, are bought into the Inifresi the same way, so many of us are who know it and love it. It's hard because it's easy to spin this idea of like being a protector, right? And a lot of our leaders, I think, would like to think that, and many of them, granted, are doing the best they can, right? But when we see like this deep sea mining resolution that Therese Terlahi had, that it was unanimously passed, and then later there was a tangible bill that was brought forth to uh, like give a fee or what is it, like a penalty, like a nominal penalty, right, to people that ships that were found deep sea mining, but also revoking their access to our port. And that was only co-signed by, I think it was like 5 or 4 senators by the time it went to public hearing. So I attended that public hearing, and thank goodness for Monica Flores, who said, hey, we're watching you guys. She, one thing I admire about her so much, she holds their feet to the fire. She says, this is an election year, and the chair of the committee is running for governor. And she said, I noticed you didn't sign on, and, we're watching you, right? And so he agreed that day to be a co-sponsor, which, these types of advocacy, styles, they work, right? When you tell your leaders, like, I'm keeping a close eye on this, and we will be reporting out to people. I think it's similar with the Chamorro Land Trust land that they were striving to give to the National Guard or something from Malesu, and there was a petition that was started saying, no, we do not consent to this. To me, that's really like democracy in action, and seeing ways like that where our people are really standing up and saying, like, we don't agree to this, we will not stand for this. Like, that really inspires me, because it takes all of us, to protect our sea, our land, and our people. It can't just be 1 or 2 voices shouting into the abyss. It takes all of us. So I feel so grateful to um, have so many friends and heroes in our community that have showed me, what advocacy is all about, and how to make sure that we're, you know, protecting these things that we love so much, the land, the sea, the people, and it really is up to us. So I'm grateful for that.
Hungan Sidus Masi, Sidus Masi. We have more questions that are coming in. This one comes from YouTube, and Esti puri Babwi, a Babwin Holum Tonu.
Mm.
So what can we do? This person says, Titsumo Tsutsu Babwi. I don't eat pig,
Mm.
but wants to know, what can we do to reduce the damage that pigs cause and create other types of meat sources? Because of course, you are very familiar with the damage that pigs cause, and
Yeah.
to native species on island and so on. And how you already mentioned how irritating they are to farmers and stuff like that. And so,
Devastating.
do you have any ideas then about kind of because I know that one of the things, the long-standing conversations too about food security is, meat sources and stuff like that. What can we do? And so, any ideas?
Yeah. Uh, Now I get to nerd out on my work stuff. There is a program here at GSC. Oh, wait, let me go get something really quick. It's right here.
No worries, no worries. And Sidus Masi to everyone who's tuning in. We've got a whole bunch of you that are tuning in from all over. Ooh, Enigi.
So this is a sign from our Ginin I Halamtanu program. And what this program does is it partners, we hang these in the jungle, in the fruit forest, so people know to be aware that it's a hunting day. This program pairs up depredation hunters from the Department of Agriculture as mentors with young, I think it's like 13 to 17 aged novice hunters who are, able to get permitted and licensed through this program. And so this is a mentorship program where they take them out on a specific day. We close the fruit forest and they're able to do depredation hunting. And it's always at like sunrise, sunset, and then they bring the catch in. And part of the program is they show them how to what is it called? Like butcher the pig. So they hang it up. Man, so I did one. Dr. Austin Shelton was here at May Harvest. We did a live demonstration for the students that we had here. And so I got to like, you like hold the shoulder and then you like cut it. And it's just not my thing. But yeah, it's amazing to see these protein sources coming from so close, right? The closest I had of an interaction like that when I was a kid was seeing my grandma make stifal and break the chicken's neck. But I think it's a lot more rare to see like a big game, right, being prepared. So if I can just highlight that May harvest, so that is Department of Ag's largest event every year, and they get together and they name like a senior farmer of the year, junior farmer of the year for the northern and southern districts, and there's like partnership awards, but they also are able to show to the community what kinds of food can come from our land. And so this year, for the first time, we had students from 3 schools here. So we had Harao, I think it was Inarahan Middle School, and one other, maybe Talifofo Elementary or something. But yeah, these kids got to see like a pig butchered right before their very eyes. And then there was one of the doctors from UOG had pig meat from a previous hunt. And so he prepared sausage that we ate that day. So yeah, just I think making sure that we can, um, safely, right, either hunt for meat or have activities like this, where here at the fruit forest is 50 acres. We can easily close it off on a weekend when there's not as robust programming happening here. And being able to partner with Department of Ag has been really great. And I think also looking into things like a slaughterhouse, I think that would be a great like secondary legislation after a commercial kitchen. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand, right? And then having people be able to have access to that in the same way, whether it's uh, publicly funded and then you just receive like a special, say, hunting certificate, then you get like annual access to the slaughterhouse every time you register your firearm for hunting, for example, right? I think that would be, I mean, transformational, really. But yeah, that was my first time slaughtering a pig, not slaughtering, but butchering a pig. That was this year. And man, the kids were so into it. This is really inspiring to me because I think we have to change this mindset that like farming is not, cool. Like I love that we have we have a summer kids camp here that's for middle schoolers. And so there's this young boy, his name's Maverick, and he saw my daughters who are really young. They're too young to be enrolled, but they would like tag along. And one of them was much more interested than the other. And he was like, good job, you're going to be a farmer. And that just like is so encouraging to me to see kids be interested in this now, because this is something my grandpa was really into, and I didn't feel connected to food in that way as a kid, And it's not that I wasn't interested in it. I think I just didn't have the opportunity to see something like that as a kid, or seeing even like, you know, a coconut cracked open. These things were, they were more, there was more distance for me as a kid for that. And so to see my kids being able to identify, like they pick up the coconut, mom, there's faja in here. Let's take it home and open it. Like that is so inspiring to me. And seeing more of these programs, I used to work at Famagu'an Farmers program where we introduce kids kind of like a basic 101 8 session introduction to agriculture on Guam. And we talk about compost and pests and seed germination. And we talk about bees and we talk about fish. And so that's so cool to me that these programs are available. But I think we need to make sure that the legislature prioritizes programs like this, that it introduces new programs like the slaughterhouse, and then make sure that it is accessible for people who are interested in those things to be able to use them. Yeah.
No, Sidus Masi. I think it's I love the idea of, shifting that focus because I mean, ever since it's been a while now that farming has kind of lost its luster. But I don't know. I mean, I think we can change that. I think we can change that, and I think we need to change that because I think but it does it does require like a shifting of values, a recentering of what it means to be somebody. And so because when we think about when tomorrow's start to feel like farming isn't cool, it's really tied to just that idea that you're cool if you can leave island. You're cool if you can go somewhere else. So the idea that if you are from the land, if you give from the land is meaningless, it's worthless. And that's when that whole idea just kind of, so if that's what you have, well, of course, you should sell it and go to Vegas. That's what you should do then. You should give it up and join the military. And then, but hopefully we can start to change that now, though, because you can always leave island and go explore. But at the end of the day, though, what what is more powerful and meaningful than the idea that you grow something, you see it to the end, and then you give it to people and you give them life? It's like, especially for, I mean, it's something that I've never been good at farming or growing things, but as somebody who is very jealous of all of the mothers who have given me children, I would want to enjoy that idea that I could grow something and then give people food and get a tiny little smidgen of that feeling that I get to help people sustain. And so, but it's a change in values. That's what's necessary to kind of get there. But I think we can, because I think we see elements of that where you have to be proud to be from Guam, you have to be proud to be here. And but I think it can happen.
I think we're seeing some of that start with the village festivals, right? We have the Papaya Block Party, we have Donny Festival, we have Pung Lao Festival. I got my fingers crossed for an Alligator Festival, okay? Go Tahu Alligator, go Tahu Lamai. Um, yeah, and so seeing, I think also recognizing that, like, dude, we have the best of these things. Like, our mango is the juiciest and sweetest that I have ever tried. So why are we importing mango? Like, it has to be about what's from here. Even with the avocado, like, I get so disappointed when I have to buy like the bumpy Mexican avocado because it's just not the same. Chamorro Alligator will change your life. Like, I believe in that. And so yeah, I am encouraged that it's shifting. But yeah, encouraging, our young people to be like, dude, it is super cool to farm. And it is super cool to be able to catch for your own food. Like, that is super cool. And we're seeing that shift now, right? But we've got to find a way to continue encouraging that for sure.
Biba, Biba. Now we are almost out of time. And so we have a bunch more questions. But I just want to ask one more. Do you have any suggestions though on where people can learn about Tinanan Amut, traditional medicine plants and stuff like that? Any suggestions on where people can learn more about those types of plants?
I know there is a book that has been recently published, Tinanam Amat Siha. I will need to find out where that would be available. I wonder if it's UOG Press, but I believe it's Mama Lou, who's the one who wrote that. And it's funny, one of my coworkers was asking me, like, do you have an Amit book at home? And my parents have this extensive library of like Guam related books. I've had to donate some of them to the museum because I just had so many. And so I found this Amit book that my dad had that has no pictures in it. It's Todoki Chamorro. And I was like, wow, we have come such a long way because Mama Lou's book that has just been recently published and a couple years ago, obviously has like different, yes, thank you. And oh, there, do you have a link to maybe you can drop it in the chat, the link to
Okay,
uh,
I'll put it in the comments for people so
yeah,
that.
in the comments. Now you can see it from like the baby leaves all the way to the mature plant. So I'm so grateful to be in the modern Chamorro era where we have so many resources and we can like discover and learn and invest our knowledge base into what our people have. I also want to encourage this person to find someone in our community who is connected to this. I'm lucky to know several apprentice healers, Ursula and Jessica. And I've learned so much from them just by being their friends. And, rest in peace to Sina Francis Meno, who was our longtime Surahana. And we just celebrated her 1 year anniversary. And my kids always knew we were turning onto her street. It's time for the green medicine. Gosh, what a gift to remember her. She was so special to so many of us. But yeah, learning from someone in our community that you can go visit SKC and see Mama Chai. She's got hours there, and I know Vanessa is one of her apprentices. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities to learn, which is really exciting.
Mhm. Biba. Now, I want to read one more comment before I give you a chance to share just a final message,
Sure.
your final kind of
This went by
closing.
so quickly. I'm amazed that it's almost over.
Feel Taekwondo. But here we go. This one says, I highly appreciate and respect candidates like Callan who have
Oh.
that sustancia, they have that
Mm.
substance. Her message and plans as a leader, Gof Claro, rare in these new candidates, Biba.
Sí,
And
just
so,
maaari para ano.
Ungan. And so, you know, put favor, I've enjoyed so much this time. I've learned a lot, and from the responses that we've gotten, I think people have also learned a lot too, and they're very excited. Use this time now to share anything. I've put into the comments too your Instagram where people can also
Yes.
follow you as well. And so I'll just put it up on the screen real quickly. This is
Yeah.
Kallen for Guam. People can follow Kallen there. Um, and so but por favor, Hafi, ultimo na sinangan mo, any final thoughts, any final plugs, any final message that you have?
Well, I do want to say Sidos Masi for this time, for having me on. I think I've spoken enough about myself today, so I want to take this time to encourage everyone to please make sure that your friends and family members are registered to vote. Our recent law passed in the legislature is that if you have not voted in 2 consecutive elections, your name will be removed from the rolls and you will need to re-register. So this is really important for this election, especially because we have like 5 gubernatorial candidates that are running. Please voting is so cool. Voting is so fun. Please make sure and ask everyone that you know, hey, did you make sure you're registered to vote? The deadline is July 17th for the primary. The primary is August 1st. And then I also would like to just ask if you resonate with my message. Maybe you can tell a friend about me. That would really mean a lot. There's a button on my Instagram story where you can order a sticker, and I will put it in an envelope and address it myself and send you a sticker. But yeah, overall, I'm just grateful to be able to be here today, to be able to take all of the things that I have learned from my friends and my heroes and my just the people in our community who are creators and protectors and artists and songbirds and podcasters, and be able to use that to fuel my energy for the election. And oh, sorry, the treasurer.
Alika.
But yeah, I am so grateful, and yes, thank you again for having me. And please go vote on August 1st, you guys. And I hope to get a chance to meet everyone. It's been so much fun being on the campaign trail and talking to voters, and I'm humbled by the support. And I'm also inspired because there's a big need. There's a big need in our community for change and for people being put first in the people's house. And that's what I'm going to do if I can get everyone's support. So I'm grateful again. Thank you.
Si Diyos masi. Ay,
Ako
di. Si
mas.
Diyos masi. Kallen, who agradeciam si Diyos masi para ifinatomo para este episode Fanachu. Za si Diyos masi hamzu todos put in eegad zan in kungo este episode.
Again.
Este Fanachu.